Welcome to the Family Church Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel and send this to anyone you think might be interested. I am so excited today as our guest is Miss Maylee Merrill. Maylee, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, okay, so I'm a junior in at West County High School. Everyone probably knows that. I play basketball, softball. I did play volleyball for a little while, quit last year, and I'll probably go back next year.
I'm sure that will
But
make the coach very happy.
yeah, definitely. She's like, come back.
Well, as most know, and she may not say it, but I will, is Maylee is one of the best athletes in the area, and she always represents our school well, and of course our church well. We talk a little bit about what brought you to Irondale First Baptist.
Yeah, well, I guess I started coming here about 18 months ago, I'd say, yeah. And at first I came by myself, like walked in the doors all alone. Actually, I went to church camp with Bismarck one year, and I like hung out with you guys. I remember hanging out around with you guys, and I was like, well, I need to come to church. Like, why am I not coming to church? So I came by myself, really nervous, sat in the front, whatever. My mom started coming with me a little bit, and then my dad eventually came, and we brought my sister, and then after that, we all started coming along, and then things happened to my parents, whatever, and we just ever since then I've been coming, trying to be consistent as I can. But
Yeah,
my dad comes with me now. My sister, my mom, she listens online and whatever she can.
yeah, that's awesome, and I know it definitely makes a difference, and it's amazing how you see different pieces of the family that will lead a church or lead a family to church. And I
Yeah.
feel like you certainly seem to open that door for your family. And I know that it's been important to others besides just you. But so, talk about your faith. How has that grown and changed over the last, say, 18 months?
Um. Well, let's just say first off, my Bible's not in my closet anymore. I remember before I didn't even. It was like I got saved pretty young, is what I thought I got saved. I don't know, maybe, but about when I started coming to church again, I was like, well, I need to actually do this. Like, so I started opening my Bible, reading as much as I could, and honestly, I think I've grown a lot since then, for sure.
Absolutely. How do you balance? I know, obviously, like you said, you play two sports, and you're one of those athletes that it's not just show up for practice, show up for games. I know you
Yeah.
put in a lot of extra time. I know what that is. Both of my kids are athletes and played year round, much like you do. Two, maybe three sport athlete again. How do you balance that with your faith?
Um, I'd say first of all, being an athlete is not who you are. It's just what you do. So when I think about that, I'm like, well, Christ comes first, Jesus first. Like that's who you are. So you gotta balance it. I mean, I listen to podcasts. Sometimes it might be hard to not read your Bible every day, which like I know every other teenager or kid understands that. So
Mhm.
it's like, well, you just gotta try to do as much as you can. Um, so like I'll listen to podcasts sometimes. Definitely reads. I mostly read my Bible almost every day. I try to at least. If I don't do that, I definitely listen to music a lot. Worship music all the time.
It is it. Do you think when you listen to worship music and you just open that door, do you feel that change in your mood, in your
Yeah, I do.
drive?
I do. I think I do. I even listen to worship music before games. I don't know why, but that's like my pump up playlist, I guess
Yeah.
you could say.
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know.
I was actually going to ask you that towards the end, but so what is your go-to song? I think everyone has that go-to song
I don't.
as an athlete. Do you have one?
Mine kind of changes every now and then. Right now, mine's called "It's in the Palm of Your Hand."
Yeah,
Um, it can be by whoever, whatever. But I've been listening to that a lot. It's actually like a 10-minute song, but
yeah, yeah. That's good. That makes sense. I'm glad to hear
yeah,
that. But we were listening to Forrest Frank on the way home just a little bit ago. I
yeah,
like
I
Forrest
like
Frank,
him a
big
lot.
Forrest Frank guy for sure. But so as busy as you are, and this is something that I see a lot in our church. We have a lot of families. We have a lot of young athletes, um, and I know it's tough because you guys travel and you play so much, and varying opinions. But obviously, Sunday is a big day for tournaments, and
Yeah.
oftentimes that's championship day and stuff like that for travel ball. Um, how do you balance that? Um, when you're out and you don't miss very often. Like you said, you make it a point to be at church, which is inspirational to more than you know. But when you can't make it, do you usually listen in online? Do you catch up later? Is it
Um,
find something else that week?
Sometimes I listen in, but if I can't do that, and I don't always go back and listen, but I usually, I definitely make time throughout that day. And if I don't, then it's like, well, the next day I got to
Yeah,
do something about it, you know?
that's good. You
Yeah.
talked about as a child you felt like you were saved, but then you know
Yeah,
later
nothing
on
really happened
you
because
you got
I don't
real
know.
about it.
Yeah.
It's that relationship like
Hmm.
that, and it's so important that you have that relationship, and that's what changes things. To come in and I always stray away from the repeat after me prayers because ultimately it's about your relationship with God. I can't walk you there, I can't talk you there, nor can anyone else. It's your own personal relationship with Christ. Has anyone talked to you about it or mentioned it, a difference in you since you've made that kind of commitment?
Yeah, my friends have kind of said some, like, seen, I'll be like, I'm like, do you guys think I'm different now or whatever? They're like, yeah, definitely. Like, freshman year or middle school me and not the same, but I mean, everyone has their valleys and stuff, but
Yeah. So, how do you think that athletics and sports have taught you about perseverance and discipline?
um, I think honestly, sports is one of the best things that you can do as a kid and put your kid through is because you're gonna have um I don't know, losses, you could say, like things you're gonna have slumps, I guess, and you just gotta learn how to get out of those. And it works the same way as a Christian. Like, you're gonna have valleys, even if you could be at your highest one day, and then the next day be at your lowest, and you just gotta know that you gotta come back up.
Yeah. But as you know, I coached for a long time, and I always said the highest highs and the lowest lows often come through that. But definitely teaching you to press forward. It's often the hardest times that make the best of times, and I think that is so relative to your spiritual walk. While the spiritual walk is far more important, it is very relative and comparable. Because you some days it's easy. That hard fought hallelujah song. I know everybody's heard
Yeah,
it, but that's true, man. Some days it's easy and some days it's tough. And that's the same way when you're trying to hone a skill. There's some days you go in, and if you've played sports very much, there's days when the ball's just going in the hole, and days when it feels like you can't get it to go.
yeah,
And how do you still continue to move forward? How do you still win? How do you still provide for your team during those times? It's really no different spiritually speaking. Some days it's easy, some days it's celebrating victory. Some seasons are like that. Others it's tougher. I know you've been through a little bit of both,
yeah,
um, but I know you're an athlete that winds up with a lot of pressure on them, for sure. No doubt about it. I mean, I've
yeah.
seen it on the field. I've seen it on the court. Definitely, especially even early on, you've had big roles on both teams. So how do you handle that?
Uh, Honestly, I just know that, like, most of my teammates, like, basketball wise, most of them, they all look towards me, you know. So I gotta. I mean, I'm standing on like a can't let no one down type of thing, but
Yeah,
honestly, I don't know. I'm just doing,
yeah. Well, I
I
think
guess.
I've told players in the past, and there's one in particular that sticks out to me that was arguably the most talented player that I've had. Um, I would say definitely the most successful player for sure. And I would talk to him a lot because he could go out individually and be the best player on the floor.
Hmm.
Um, he was good enough to do that. But when you're talented, or like anybody that's great at a sport, obviously you're talented a certain amount and you've earned a certain amount to be great. Um, and I would always say, you can do this on your own, but other people can't do it without you. So how do you make them better? How do you impact them? That was a question I would constantly ask him, especially young when he was young, and I knew he was going to be really good. Um, how do you make these other people better? You may score 20 without them, but they can't score 10 without you. So how do you make that happen? That's going to be the difference between hanging banners and not hanging
Yeah,
banners. That's a lot of pressure, but at the same time, that's a pretty nice gift. A lot of people would like to have that pressure. At least they think they would. Um, and so when you have it, that's a big platform, and the way you handle that with either humility, uh, obviously, or pride, which one is it? I think that's where being Christ centered is so huge. It certainly puts your priorities in order, uh, gives you something else to bounce off of. You hear a lot of voices. Everybody's got good advice, especially on the sports. Every time you should do this, you should do that, do
Mm-hmm.
this more, do this less. You're going to have jealousy no matter what you do when you're good at a sport, especially at the high school level. And so, do you feel like that Christ being centered now for you as an athlete, has that helped take some of that pressure off, or at least displace it a little bit?
Yeah, I do think that it does help me to just like, I don't know, maybe people, no one's ever said anything to me, but I guess you could say for like other people, people say stuff to you or whatever, but like you could use God as that, like, like your worth doesn't change in his eyes, like you're worth
Yeah,
gold.
absolutely. Well, I'll ask you this one: have you had that mad prayer with God yet, where something's not going your way? And because I know obviously you're putting in time and effort at a sport, when you're putting in time and effort, and sometimes the benefits don't seem to come as quickly as you hoped. We all want to put in that time, effort, and immediately reap the benefits of it. Spiritually, the same way. You're someone that's very devout in your spiritual walk. You're doing it with great intention, and then the same way on the sports side of things. Have you ever had that real frustrating prayer of God with God, maybe on the court, on the field, before or after a game, or maybe just something in life where you're like, God, why is this not happening? Why is it not happening the way that I see it?
Yeah, I feel like I've definitely just had that prayer. I'm like, oh, why is it not working? Or like, or even like yelling, screaming. I don't even know. Just yelling loud one day in my room. I'm like, why is it not working? But I mean,
You know, I think sometimes you can feel guilty after those moments because God's God. I think that's a great sign of spiritual maturity.
yeah,
That's when you get real with God. Um, that's kind of like, you have teammates, you have friends, you have family that you just get to be real with. And then you get the right kind of comfortable. And they can also say what they need to say to you, and you know where it's coming from. So the reason I ask that question is because if you're doing that, that's a great sign of spiritual maturity. If you're, we don't want to forget him on the great side and the victorious side either,
yeah,
and celebrate. I've certainly had that, um, where I've talked to God, I've made deals with God, going into big games,
yeah,
and then come out. And there's been times when I've prayed and wanted something so bad, got it, and God wasn't my first thank you. And then you're like, oh man, I've been begging for this. God's blessed me with it, and He wasn't my first thank you. It wasn't my first,
yeah.
pat on the back. And then on the flip side of that, when He has been, I will say it makes it that much sweeter. It's easier to manage it right, to do things the way that we should. What would you say has been your greatest achievement in sports?
Right now,
Mm-hmm.
well, I just hit 1,000 points in basketball. I guess that would be like my
That's a pretty
greatest
big one.
achievement right now.
That's a pretty big one, especially where you are in your career to hit 1,000 points for anybody. Anybody that scores 1,000 in basketball in high school, that's pretty special. That's pretty awesome. That takes a lot of hard work, dedication, teammates and coaches that trust you. That's awesome.
Thank
Um, one question: what do you think are some unique challenges that athletes face today in high school?
you. I'd say a lot of people just compare each other with other people or other athletes, or I don't know.
Comparison, and I think you're right. It's worse now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
I think we always, when I was in high school, we really didn't have cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Internet wasn't even thinkable as far as social media. That wasn't even a term that I ever remember hearing at that time. But you see everyone's highlights, everyone's achievements, um, and your comparative, and it seems like they always flash up there at a time when you're in a struggle, or something good happens, and then all of a sudden you see a one up. I don't think that's coincidental. But yeah, that's a huge achievement. What is your biggest goal as far as sports go?
Um, I really just want our team to win it. Last year for softball, we won conference, district. I just want that again. And for basketball, we have yet to win districts or anything like that. So hopefully, maybe this year we can win districts,
Yeah.
even though we're short a player or two. But maybe
I
we
think
can.
you guys have a great shot at it.
Hopefully,
I love it that your answer was team.
yeah.
When I asked that question, a lot of people, and not necessarily the worst thing ever, but might have said, "Well, I hope to play this sport in college, or I hope to score another 1,000 points, or whatever." But it wasn't immediately. You're thinking team, and that's a very good thing. Very good thing for sure. And you kind of covered the next question I had about social media and stuff. Looking around, have you ever had any criticism that really hit hard?
No, I don't think I
That's good.
have.
That's good. That's good that you have. That's always a tough one. What would you say has been your greatest struggle in sports?
um, Probably softball wise, you get in hitting slumps. Those are rough. If you
Yeah.
know, those are always rough. And then you got your parents and you got your dad or your mom saying like, "Why can't you hit the ball?" Well, I don't
I
know.
would love to.
I don't
I would love
know.
to. Yeah. Yeah. And the pressure just mounts the
Yeah.
longer it goes on.
Hmm.
Do you feel like we've talked about the sports side of pressure there? What about the spiritual side of pressure, whether it be in school and sports? How has that impacted you? Meaning the pressure that makes it tough to walk your walk in Christ like you really want to. Have you experienced that very much? Not really. Hey, that's another great thing, and I say that's a great tribute to our school, to our area. That's a blessing. I know for me, when I got out of our little bubble and playing sports and around sports, uh, some of the common things, terminologies, and sometimes even character practices was kind of eye opening to me.
Hmm.
And seeing that, of course, my kids going through the same stuff. Um, Sometimes things can be very acceptable, if not, in certain teams, certain groups that really push you the wrong way, in certain hobbies and habits and those kind of things. But I will have to say, I'm not totally shocked that you've been protected from that because I know the coach that you have here. I know the
Yep.
people that work with you. I know the people that surround you, and of course our culture here, and that's pretty awesome. That's good to hear.
I could add. I guess we're talking about the pressure stuff or whatever. This year we have FCA or whatever at
Mhm.
school, and this year I decided to be a leader. So there's a lot of I feel like there's a lot of pressure when I have to go in and like speak and like do like individual groups during Bulldog time what we do,
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh gosh, but sometimes they're not good, but I guess that's pressure.
I think it speaks louder than you would ever think.
Yeah.
Um, for sure. And that was the next question I was actually going to ask you. How do you see yourself as a leader, as an advocate for Christ, whether it be as an athlete, as an FCA leader, as a student at West County High School? How do you see that as your role?
I definitely say it's your actions.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I don't love it when people talk about, oh, we got to get the Bible back in school. We have to get Jesus back in school. I can promise you, those things have never left school.
Yeah.
They're there if people like you take them there, and we're blessed more than most in our school in our area, more than any place I know, in that regard. But as we kind of think about that, there is a certain amount of pressure. It's still popular, So for somebody to wear a shirt that has a scripture on it, for somebody to have a Bible, to have a cross on something, those things are popular. They're not frowned upon in the widest and broadest amount of culture.
Hmm.
Sometimes it feels like it is, but it's really not. But it's a whole nother thing to act it out, to live it out, to walk it out. And so there's always people that are watching you, and you are the Jesus they see that
Yeah.
you never think. The ones that I've always thought this, and whether it be as a coach, as a teacher, administrator, uh, teammate, just as a child of God, the people that you think you're really doing things for or setting an example for, a lot of times you don't impact near at the level of the ones you didn't even know were watching. Sometimes the ones that you really didn't think you impacted at all, and then you come up later, maybe months, days, years later, and it was the little things, the actions that you just done, um, just out of habit, out of your priority, out of your character, that really matter.
Yeah,
So
I definitely say that actions are important because I one time I don't know, it might have been a sermon I heard or like at a youth rally or something. Someone was saying something about how like you just want to constantly tell people about Jesus. You want to tell people like just open your Bible, but like kids aren't just gonna do that if they don't know God. They're not just gonna go one like 9 times out of 10 they're not just gonna be like let's just open the Bible and let's just it's your actions. You got to do stuff like show kindness and love towards them. That's Christ.
absolutely, that's great. Um, I'll ask this: what was this kind of backtracking a little bit, but if you don't mind sharing, what was it that caused you to get real with Christ? What was it? Was it coming to church, giving God a chance, and you just felt the draw, or was it something else that pushed you in that way?
Um, I would say I was at church camp and I was like, why am I not doing this? So I decided to do it, and my parents were kind of like in between, like wanting to stay together and breaking up. I mean,
Yeah,
basically. And I was just like, well, I'm not gonna go down a hole when this is happening. So I'm like, I'm gonna turn to God. So I was like, well, maybe I know that there's no way that can be wrong. So I'm like, give it a
yeah,
try. So kind of,
yeah. That in itself speaks uh, volumes.
yeah.
Because at that moment, when you have a good excuse. I talked about this sermon a few weeks ago. They had good excuses to not do what God was calling them to
Hmm.
do, and no one would blame you. Go, hey, Maylee's having a rough year. Things are happening outside of her control. She's having a rough year. You could obviously, take that, probably not earn the things you're earning or enjoy the things you're enjoying, but instead you turn to God. Things you can't control anyways, you hand it over to Him, and then immediately everyone can obviously see the growth and the light coming from you and through you. Um, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, there's no wrong you can do about turning to God.
No, no, you're right, and I love that you said that. I
Give it
don't.
a try.
Basically, I don't know. I don't know which ways are wrong, but I know
Yeah.
which ways right, and
Mhm.
that's cool. Um, so kind of talking about that. So being dealing with emotions, dealing with hurts. When you're getting ready to go into a big game, do you have a lot of anxiety?
Um, depends on the game, I guess. Usually it doesn't build like I go into the game all day, I'm like, I'm fine, let's go. And then it's like right as I sit out on that bench, right to get up before like I'm fine in warm ups, everything like that. It's just as soon as I sit on that bench I gotta get anxiety, nervous.
I always think the national anthem. When the
Yeah,
national anthem's
that too.
playing, I feel like I'm going to explode. And I still, right now, even when I'm just watching a game,
Mhm.
if I'm in a gym and the national anthem's playing, I feel like I'm getting ready to coach or play. Like I still get that feeling for just a little bit, like it's getting ready to happen, even though I'm just in the stands, or standing to the side. That was kind of my moment. It's game time, and I would get that really wiry feeling, and honestly, uh, I have that on a grander scale in church. When it's time to take the pulpit, time to preach, and let go of what God's laid on my heart. Sometimes I feel like I've kept a secret that I can't wait to tell somebody.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, everything you've been preparing for, you get to go out and put it out there and hope that it makes a difference and believing that it does. Again, I think spiritual, sports wise, it's the same. Uh, my both of my little brothers were pretty good basketball players. Both of them better than me, and one of them he threw up before every game,
Oh
every single
really?
game. Yeah, I don't know how it,
Oh my.
but he get nervous, throw up before every game. He was a great player, and but I used to always, how are you so nervous? You go out and kill it every day. I think at some point I'd be the other way. I'd be very confident. If you're the best player on the floor a lot of days, then you just believe it. But I guess that's
Yeah.
what it takes. But what about at times? Do you ever feel overwhelmed or burnt out? I mean, I know you put a ton of time in. Do you ever get that feeling, or do you have
Oh
that?
for sure, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That that's a big difference between being talented and tapping into greatness.
Mhm.
Because the days when you don't feel like it, the days you don't feel like putting in the time, uh, like tonight. I mean, we're doing this at basically 7 o'clock
Yeah.
because of the time and effort you're putting in. And when we were talking about doing this, working out of time, I pretty well knew this was going to be a nighttime podcast,
Yeah, me
even on
too.
snow days. Yeah, yeah. So, but that's great, and it says a lot about your commitment, and that's why you're so successful, and others around you are going to be successful. Um, see, so talk about your faith. how does that navigate you as far as in the victories and in the losses?
Um, I want to say your faith shouldn't ever change in your wins or your losses. Like you're the same in God's eyes, just as you are on a win day and on a loss day.
So are you someone that prays to win? Do you pray to win?
No, actually, I don't.
I don't know if there's a right answer to that. I've been asked that a lot over the years.
Yeah,
Like, have you ever prayed to win? You bet I have. I have prayed to win. I've certainly prayed to
not
win.
in a game
Yeah, yeah,
because me and my team will like we do prayers before every
yeah,
game or whatever. It's usually me or Emmeline, and we're like, don't pray the win, don't pray the W.
yeah.
we're praying for a good outcome.
Now I've had players that led in prayer for years
Yeah.
when I was coaching teams, and I remember I'll never forget the team that started doing that, and they would never pray to win. They would never pray to win. They would always pray to stay healthy and safe. That's something
Yeah,
I'd hear a lot.
for
Pray
sure.
to stay healthy and safe, and to play the best of their ability. Every now and then they'd say, "God, if it's your will, give us this win." And that
I feel like we've done that before,
yeah,
but
yeah,
we try
yeah. I
not
don't know
to.
that God cares that much whether or not we win or lose a
Yeah, I
game,
don't.
but He certainly cares about how He can utilize our
Mhm.
platforms, whatever that is. I believe that, and we have that opportunity to show it. So something you do better than most, according to what I see. Um, there's an awful lot of athletes that don't seem to make it to church as much as you do. But at the same time, I don't know an athlete that puts in more time than you do. So how do you balance that? Because I would love for other people to start following that path.
No, I don't know. I try to set Sundays like aside for sure. Like we do practices. Like I plan practices. Like for school, we always afternoon,
Yeah,
and like I'll go to the weight room or whatever or any kind of other practices. I make sure I don't do it on Sundays.
yeah,
And I know like travel ball, I'm gonna have tournaments in the summer. Like I'm not gonna
yeah.
miss those. So,
Right.
but definitely just try to stay as consistent as you can. And there's gonna be excuses or whatever, but I mean, there doesn't need to be.
Yeah. I know my kids. My daughter played JO volleyball from the time she was in elementary, so that would have been going on like this time of the year, and then my son played travel basketball, which is usually in the summer, and there's an awful lot of times, Delia had him on Sunday by herself. We'd had to take two vehicles, things like that. Sunday obviously I'm missing those days. That's about the only sporting events of my kids that I ever missed.
Yeah.
But it's tough. It's tough to miss, and I understand the
Yeah, it
culture.
definitely is. Especially like Wednesday nights. Those are hard to make
Yeah,
sometimes. Being doing all the things.
yeah, and that's something as a church we talk about. We want to be there and provide and work around. Um, I hear two sides of that. I hear people say, "Well, they do all this stuff for sports, and they're not going to do those the rest of their life." But
Yeah.
then, you hear the other side of that and say they're only going to get to do this for a short time in their life, and then they won't. I don't care how far you go. There
Hmm.
comes a pretty early time in life, um, when that's no longer a thing. LeBron James and I are only 4 months apart, and he's still playing basketball, and everybody's talking about how old he is. Like it's
Yeah.
unreal, and it is. It's
It
unbelievable.
is crazy.
I play open gym on Monday night, and I can't walk for 3 days. He's still elite and getting scrutinized every day, but
Yeah.
but that being said, those careers, even one like his that is just super super long, really not that long in the grand scheme of things. So I get it. It's for most of us, it's a few years of high school, maybe some years of college if you're
Hmm.
extremely blessed and fortunate and that devoted. Um, so I get both sides of that, but I respect your balance, and I always think of that when people are out a lot for sports, and then I think, gosh, Maylee's here. Oh, it feels like almost every
Yeah.
Sunday.
I'd say there's always time for God. Like you shouldn't be have to make time for God. Like I don't know how to say it. He should be first, and then sports follow. You
Yeah,
know.
and that translates to
But
everything, and I think it's easy for us to put careers,
yeah.
relationships. We're all guilty of it at
Hmm.
times, but that's great advice for anybody at any age, making him first, and that's
Yeah.
something you have to make a priority. I love the way that you keep sports in the right place, and they're still very very important. I don't think anybody's going to say, "Hey, I work harder than her. I put in more time than her." I don't know anybody, but at the same time, you're sitting there saying it's not first. It's a
Yeah, you
very
can't.
high
Yeah.
priority, and it's obvious, but it's not first. Um, Used to, and I don't know if this still goes around, but there's I am second. I actually have the book I think over here on my shelf, but I am second meaning God's first, and you know, I love that thinking. I love that saying.
Yeah.
And I had a player. He doesn't live very far from us now, named Zach Smith, and we used to talk about it all the time. There was videos of I am second. A lot of professional athletes giving their testimonies, and they would always at the end say I am second. One of my very favorite sports memories in the summer, we were playing in a tournament and at the Rib City Shootout, and um, I had shirts black and just in white letters said I am second. And that day, one of the referees, a friend of mine, was teasing. He said, "Boy, that's a bad shirt to wear on tournament day." And I said, "I think it's a perfect shirt to wear on
Yeah.
tournament day." We won the whole thing, and so I have a championship picture with me wearing an "I am second" shirt, and he refereed the championship game. And he said, "I guess that shirt wasn't so bad after
That's
all." And
cool.
then I got to explain to him what the shirt meant.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was that's a pretty cool memory. And I think as long as we keep that way, we'll have success in some form or another
Mhm.
outside of that. Um, what do you think reminds you of your values? Is there something like in the heat of the moment, if you're an athlete like you are, there's always a time in a ball game where, you're getting hit in the nose and sometimes not accidentally, or people are saying things. You're stepping up in softball and the catcher's saying things that maybe aren't very Christ-like sometimes. Um, how do you keep your balance and go, hey, I'm a representative of Christ. I'm not going to get into this battle. I'm not going to lose the character of Christ in the midst of emotion.
Um, Definitely when I get frustrated, I mean, I can. It's definitely hard. I mean, I talk to myself all game long. Like, I'm just talking to myself. I don't know. Sometimes you want to get mad and just cuss and fight and say something, but you just gotta hold it back. You're like, no, I
Yeah,
can't do that.
yeah, it's tough. And in emotion, sometimes that your mouth or your actions will get
Yeah,
ahead of
cause
what you really
yeah.
want to do. It definitely happens sometimes. Um, Kind of winding down the questions I have here, but what advice would you give younger athletes that want to follow Jesus and compete?
Um, I definitely say Jesus comes first and show others Christ through you. What you do, just be nice to each other, be nice to your teammates, stick up for them, and that's what I'd say for people to
Again, and I'd echo, you're always talking about your teammates. Always talking about your teammates. That's a great example to follow as well. Um, Here's a question, kind of for me. How can the church better support student athletes? What could the church do?
do. I don't know. I feel like we do pretty good about like sports stuff. Like we do game night. I mean, what's it called? Pickleball.
Yeah, pickleball. We do pickleball. Yeah,
And you do basketball, but I guess that's for men or whatever.
yeah. Well, and
We don't
that's
really have like a whole lot of youth. I feel like that do many sports,
it
but
depends. Our Wednesday night crowd versus our
yeah,
Sunday night
I
crowd of
feel like
youth
it's two different
is two
two
different
different
groups. Yeah,
groups.
but
Yeah,
but Sunday we have a tremendous amount of mostly younger athletes
yeah,
and those kind of things, and that's something we really are focused on. And while we have a lot of people that go out and support, our local sports as far as attendance and stuff, we're always looking and trying to think of what we can do to better support and outreach. Not just our athletes, but all of our students. But certainly that's something that we have passion for. Um, what scripture or maybe worship song, you talked about either one, has been especially meaningful to you recently?
um, I'm reading the Book of Matthew right now. I feel like I've been reading it forever, but I've just been reading, reading. Um, the parable of the sower is really good. If you've read that,
Oh yeah,
and Matthew 20:28 right now it's said something about Jesus came to the earth to be a server, not to be served. Like we are
yeah,
not gonna get served, so it just kind of is like, well,
yeah,
we're not here to be served. We're here to serve.
yeah. And
So
that kind of takes away sometimes our sense of entitlement that most of us can get at times, uh, our pride,
mhm.
because the greatest of all of us, uh, came to serve, to be a servant, and that servanthood you keep talking about, being there for your teammates, defending your teammates, taking care of your group, your people.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jesus done that at the greatest level. We'll never be asked to do it at the level he did. Um, what would you say to a teammate that feels like they're just not good enough?
I would just tell them that they're definitely good enough. I mean, everyone has their doubts or whatever, but to tone out whatever their doubt is, and none of that matters.
I know as a player, um, there was a guy that was a year older than me. He's one of the best teammates I ever had as a player, and he was working with me after practice. We played the same position,
Mm-hmm.
and he come over after we were done going through some stuff, and he kind of patted me on the back. He said, and this is funny because in hindsight, it's probably not as impactful as it was in the moment. And he said, anybody that works as hard as you is going to get better.
Yeah.
Um, and while that's basically saying you're not very good, but keep doing what you're doing, it's going to work out. And but it meant a lot to me
Yeah.
that just to hear that like you're working hard enough. I needed to hear that you're doing something right. And that stuck with me. I mean, I still remember it like it was yesterday, and it certainly, like a lot of sports things do, it carried over into a lot of other parts of life. Because we can choose that. Um, we may not be naturally talented or tall or athletic, fast, whatever, but we can choose to be the hardest working version of ourselves every
Yeah.
single day. We can choose to put others first. So I think the things we can control can certainly put us into conversation
Yeah,
of
for
being
sure.
successful. That's something that really sticks with
Yeah,
me.
that's good.
I've got three more rapid questions. Then I always give everybody an opportunity to ask me questions or say anything else that they want to
Okay.
say. Do you have a pre-game routine or superstition or anything that you do before every game?
Uh, I don't really. I mean, I pray before every game, like individually by myself, but there's not like something certain I have to do. Like I have to drink this drink before every game.
Yeah,
No,
you're
I
not
don't.
wearing the same
No,
socks all year or nothing
no.
like that.
I
I
do
don't.
wear two pairs of socks though. That might be weird.
My
I
son
wear
does
two
that.
pairs of
Yeah,
socks.
my son does that. I could never do that, but
I
he
don't know.
he 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 probably is wearing two pair of socks right now, but he always wore two pairs of socks. Um, what was the hardest practice you ever survived? Do you remember any certain practices that?
uh, Definitely going back to Jacob Hedgecorp's house.
Yeah,
When I go to practices there, those you don't come out non. You're always miserable when you leave.
yeah, yeah. I can.
I don't remember any particular practice, but
I,
those are pretty rough
I
over
follow
there.
him on Facebook, and
Yeah,
it's
he's a
always
great
great
coach.
to see
But
the stuff that he puts
hmm
puts kids through. And the other thing about it, I know he pushes everybody hard,
yeah,
but you can really see how much each individual person that he works with, how much it means to him.
hmm
He takes an awful lot of positive pride in you all's success day on the daily,
yeah,
not
for
just your
sure.
success in the sport, but it's a pretty big success to go put that kind of time and effort in, and to do that on a regular basis. It's unique. It sets you apart, and we're called by Christ to be set apart, be unique. Um, so, looking at the future, what's it look like after high school? What's your dream?
Um, I'm probably gonna play softball. Definitely softball. Since, cause I've just done that ever since I was little. I'm like, I can't give that up.
Do
I
you,
think I went on a visit to Mac a while back, and I'll probably go there. I'm not ready to go far yet,
yeah,
so probably go there for 2 years, play softball, and see where that
see where it
takes
takes you.
me.
Well, that's good.
Maybe I won't like softball after then, or maybe
Hey,
I
we're
will.
pretty
Who
fond of the
knows?
Mac coach at West County. We're pretty big fans,
Yeah.
so that would be pretty awesome. Um,
hmm
do you have anything else that you'd like to say, or anything that you'd like to ask me?
Um, I think I've already asked you this question before, actually. What brought you here, like to this church and this school?
I get asked that a lot, and the short answer is God.
Yeah.
Um, but really and truly, I've not told this story on the podcast, so I'll go ahead and tell it. So my son graduated high school, and he was going to play college ball, not close to home. He had already accepted a scholarship and going to do that. My daughter's finishing nursing school, and so we were young parents, young married. So it was kind of a little bit inverse. This was kind of like almost the college experience. Like I was able to, for the first time in my life, kind of look and see what jobs were out there. I knew of West County School. I'd seen them. Um, and pretty fond of purple. I'll tell you that much too. So my home school is purple as well,
Yeah.
and I graduated from SBU, which is also purple. But um, anyway, so I had put in for a principal job and took an interview, and I was talking to some other schools about different jobs and things like that, and but my first official interview, I had some more lined up. And I had one other job offer, but this is my first interview that I took. I took it with the board, and I came up, and I was sitting in the boardroom, kind of in the central office there, and waiting to come in and interview with the board. And the superintendent at the time uh, come out, and I talked to him on the phone through email. I never met him face to face. He shook my hand and said, "Steve," he said, "I understand you're a man of faith." And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "You would love it here." And that that was about it. He said, "We'll call you back just a little bit." Walked out. I met some of the other admin in passing there, like them. I called Delia immediately, and she and told her, I said, "This is going really well." She said, "You're already done interview?" I said, "No, I haven't been called back yet, but it's going really well." And so, like at that moment, I just knew like something was different. So I go in, I interview with the board, and felt really good about it. I really felt like it went good, and that I would might get the job offer. Um, Her sister lives in Deloge, and so it's about 6 miles from the central office. I went, picked her up, headed back down south where I'm from, and we hadn't even made it to Bismarck yet. Matter of fact, we just turned on 32 there in Leadington, and they called me and offered me the job. And so I wound up talking back and forth, asking questions. Every question I asked, they had the right answer,
Yeah.
And I pulled in at Bismarck Bank, Unico Bank, and I got out and I walked around and I prayed in the parking lot. And I was pastoring a church in Van Buren back home, and that was a big thing,
Yeah.
And so I felt like, so my prayer is, God, you know, this feels like you're calling me to do this, and but what about ministry? I don't believe you'd be calling me away from ministry. I know you've had that calling on my life. How does that work? And God just so clearly just spoke to my heart and said, "Let me get the door. Just let me get the door." So I'm at walking around, pacing around the parking lot, which is not, unusual for you guys that know me and see how I act. Delia's in the car. I go to her passenger side. I don't remember if she rolled down the window, opened the door, and I said, "God said, let me get the door." And she said, "Then we got to go." And so I called back. I accept the job right there on the spot. So a few weeks later, I was going through the central office, and we were interviewing. Mr. Watson and I were interviewing for an elementary position that was going to be open. And Crystal Shannon said, "Hey, there's a local deacon at a church that's wanting your phone number. Is it okay if I give it to him?" And I said, "Absolutely." I said, "Any churches um, that want my phone number, you give it to them. I'd be glad to talk to any of them." And I figured they just knew elementary principal, heard he's a Christian, want to talk to him. Well, there's a stretch where you don't have service between here and where I'm from, some pretty big stretches, and at one point it's pretty late. I was headed home, and I got a message from Charlie Caroline. Said they were looking for a pastor. About 2 weeks later, and then so this was in March. So I think it was the first or second weekend in April. I come up and wind up trying out here and got voted in. And so people ask like, "How did that happen? Which did you do first?" And it's something that God just lined up, and then
Yeah.
I mean,
Perfectly.
obviously, it's such a perfect fit, and we've been so blessed here, and people are so good to us, and God has moved in ways that I've never seen before. I've seen God move in
Yeah.
awesome ways,
For
but
sure.
our church has grown, and it's just been amazing to be a part of, um, and be able to learn and grow right here. It's been really cool. So that's how I got here. It's kind of a crazy story, but it's pretty simple. It's a step of faith that, in a lot of ways, didn't make any sense, but God had it all laid out, and
Mm.
it's sometimes when you take that leap of faith. It says a step of faith. It's kind of a leap of faith. for me, really. I'm somebody born and raised in a small town. Uh, didn't necessarily want to be away from that small town,
Mhm.
but God had other plans, and He certainly lined it up to take me where I was supposed to be.
Yeah. This is a compliment to you, I guess, but you might not even want a compliment. But I think that definitely you being the principal at our school and the pastor has helped us grow so much because like there's kids going, they're like, oh, let's go. Like obviously it's probably a good church, right? I mean, our school has a good principal.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I do think it's a big advantage. I
Yeah.
get to know a lot of people. When you come somebody that's not from here to come in and get to know people, there's not much better opportunity. I
Mhm.
always think it's kind of fun and neat. And obviously, I'd never name names, but sometimes I have students who I deal with discipline, and then that's how I get to know their parents. And some of those go to our church now because that's how
Oh
initially,
my.
at least, and they're not. It's just kids are kids.
Just
We all
kids,
make
yeah.
mistakes, and but sometimes that's how I get to know them on a better level as I
Yeah.
start talking about it, and I think they appreciate the fact that I love their kids and I'm trying to do what's best for them. Most of them see that,
Yeah, me too.
and so it's amazing how sometimes that's the opportunity to make those connections. But yeah, yeah, I mean it's God put it together, and that's definitely a huge advantage. Have any other questions for me?
No, I don't.
All right. Well, what would you like to see here at church that you don't see right now?
Um, more people. I don't
More
care.
people.
More people.
That's never a wrong
I
answer.
remember Easter, we had chairs in the middle of the pews.
Yeah,
That wasn't fun.
yeah, I could get
I think
used
I
to that.
cried that day. I was like, no way, we have this many
That's
people.
that's awesome. Those
Yeah.
days when we're packed to the walls, and
Mhm.
there's other times we have to pull out chairs, but those are awesome times and good problems to have, and we're always trying to be mindful of parking and those things. But I'm with you. I'll
Yeah.
take more people any day, and I know God's working that out too. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you doing this, and I know
Thank
we'll
you.
get it posted as soon as possible, and it'll get a ton of listens. So, thank you all for joining our podcast today. Please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much, Maylee. What an awesome testimony. Look forward to much, much more that God's doing in your life. Go Bulldogs.